morning, class 11. This is for subject biology, chapter 9, biomolecules, and this is lecture number 5 of this chapter. Today we will discuss about polysaccharides, which are biomacromolecules, right? So this is last biomacromolecule which is left. So we will do this today. After that we will discuss about concept of metabolism, metabolic basis for living, and the living state. So let's start with polysaccharides. Here word saccharide means sugar and poly means polymer or many, you can say. So this is polymer of sugars, and here word sugar is for monosaccharide. I am saying sugar word is for saccharide. So monosaccharides polymer make polysaccharide, right? Mono means one, saccharide means sugar. So one sugar is called monosaccharide, and many sugars when combined, that structure is called polysaccharide. Okay, so that form a biomacromolecule. Now let's see here. These are examples of polysaccharide. Okay, how these are formed from monosaccharides. So starch is a polysaccharide which is made up of many monomer units, and these monomer units are of glucose. So glucose is a monosaccharide here, and many glucose units when combined together that make a structure called starch. Okay, so starch is polysaccharide and glucose is monosaccharide. And here you can see this is homopolymer of glucose. Homopolymer means only glucose monomer units are present here, means same types of monomer units are present. So all the units which are present here are of glucose. Then second example of polysaccharide is cellulose. Cellulose is also a homopolymer of glucose. Okay, you can see the difference in structure. When the glucose units are present like this, these are arranged like this, the structure will be called starch. Okay, starch will be formed, and arrangement of glucose like this will make cellulose. Okay, so based on the arrangement, glucose can make starch or cellulose. Both are homopolymer of glucose. And also glycogen. Glycogen is a polysaccharide. This is also a homopolymer of glucose. As you can see here, this is glycogen, and these glucose subunits are arranged here like this. Okay, so it is also making a polysaccharide which is homopolymer of glucose. Then inulin. Inulin is a homopolymer of fructose. So it is different from these because here in these three monomer unit is glucose, but here in inulin monomer unit is fructose. So you need to learn the monomer unit of all these polysaccharides. Now let's see how these monomer units, like how the monosaccharides are combined together to make a polysaccharide. Okay, so polysaccharide is made by formation of glycosidic bond between monomer units, or between monosaccharides, you can say. Okay, between monosaccharide subunits. So you see here, these are two monosaccharides. This is a structure for glucose. Okay, this is first carbon, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Okay, six carbons are present here in glucose. So this is cyclic form of glucose, and here this is second glucose. So two monosaccharide units are present here. Okay, monosaccharide subunits. Now how these will make the bond? This bond will be formed here like this. OH and OH are present here on this position, right? Now one water molecule will be released from here, like OH from one glucose unit and H from second glucose molecule, you can say. So OH plus H, H2O will be released here. You can see here one water molecule will be released, and this O will be present here to make a bond between these two glucose molecules. Okay, and this bond is called glycosidic bond, right? So here the bond which is formed between two monosaccharide subunits is called glycosidic linkage or glycosidic bond. And here for the formation of glycosidic bond, one water molecule is released. So you need to learn how to make this bond, how this glycosidic bond is formed between two monosaccharide subunits. Okay, now because two monosaccharide subunits are present here, okay, that's why this structure is called a disaccharide. Di means two, saccharide means sugar, because two sugar molecules are present here, that's why it is called disaccharide. And when many such monosaccharide units will be present here, the structure will be called polysaccharide. Now we will discuss about the glycosidic bond. So it is the bond formed when individual monosaccharides are linked between two carbon atoms by dehydration. Dehydration means release of water molecule. As you can see here, one water molecule is released. So here monosaccharides are linked by dehydration and the bond is called glycosidic bond. Now this is structure of glycosan. As I told you that glycosan is a homopolymer of glucose. So all these glucose units are present here, and glycosan will be formed as a polysaccharide, and these branches are present like this in glycosan. Okay, so this is structure for glycosan, that how it look like. These branches are present like this in glycosan. Now, as I told you that starch and cellulose both are homopolymers of glucose. Okay, it means both have glucose as their monosaccharide subunit. Okay, but still there is some difference in their structure. As you can see here, starch is making these helix, but in this cellulose structure you can see the difference. Okay, so structure of both are different. Okay, so starch forms helical secondary structure, as you have studied about helical structure of proteins also, right? So such helix are formed here also in starch, and due to presence of these helix in starch, it can hold iodine molecules in the helical portion, giving blue color. So these helix present here in starch can hold iodine molecule inside. Okay, and when it will react with iodine, means when the starch will react with iodine, that will give us blue color. Okay, that color of iodine you might have seen it in the lab. It has purple color, you can say, and when it react with starch, it gives blue color. Okay, when iodine react with starch, it gives blue color. So this is an experiment. You can see here this potato is having starch. Okay, starch is present in potato. So when we put a drop of iodine on the potato, it gives blue color because of the reaction of starch with iodine. Okay, and why it is giving blue color? Because starch having these helix, and these helix can hold iodine molecules, right? Now cellulose has no complex helix, as you can see here. Helices is the plural form for the helix. Okay, so cellulose is not having any helix, as you can see here, therefore it cannot hold iodine, right? That's why it will not give any color with starch. Sorry, it will not give any color with iodine because it cannot hold iodine. All these polysaccharides that we have discussed, like starch, cellulose, glycosan, these are simple polysaccharides. Okay, now there are some complex polysaccharides also, and these complex polysaccharides are formed of amino sugars, like you can say glucosamine, where amino acids are attached with sugars. Okay, so that will form a complex polysaccharide. Like glucosamine is a you can say complex polysaccharide, and also an acetyl galactosamine. Okay, here also an acetyl group is present with the amino sugar. So these type of polysaccharides are called complex polysaccharide. Here chitin is the homopolymer of an acetyl glucosamine. Okay, chitin is a polysaccharide, and this chitin polysaccharide is made up of N-acetyl glucosamine as monomer, as its monomer unit. Okay, as we have glycosan made up of glucose as monomer unit. Likewise, this chitin is made up of N-acetyl glucosamine as its monomer unit. Okay, and this chitin polysaccharide is found in exoskeleton of arthropods and fungal cell wall. As you can see here, this arthropod crab, and a very hard skeleton is present in these animals. So this hard exoskeleton of arthropods is made up of a polysaccharide. Which polysaccharide? Chitin. And this chitin is a type of complex polysaccharide. Why this is complex polysaccharide? Because it is made up of an acetyl glucosamine, which is a combination of amino acids with sugars attached with acetyl group. Okay, that's why it makes it a complex polysaccharide. So this is fungal cell wall and this is exoskeleton of arthropod. Both are made up of chitin. After polysaccharides, our next topic is metabolism. We are using this term metabolism from very first chapter. So now we will understand it. What is this metabolism? So all the biochemical reactions taking place inside a living system together constitute metabolism. So biochemical reactions taking place inside a living system. That living system can be a single cell in case of unicellular organism, or a group of cells in case of multicellular organism. Okay, so we can say the biochemical reactions which are occurring inside a cell or a group of cells together constitute the metabolism. For example, removal of carbon dioxide from amino acids to form amine. Okay, that is an important reaction that is occurring inside our body, inside our cells. Okay, where carbon dioxide is removed from amino acids. So that is a part of metabolism. Okay, that is a kind of reaction, biochemical reaction, which is occurring inside our body, and that is a part of metabolism, you can say. Then another reaction you can take, for example, is removal of amino group in a nucleotide base. That is also a part of metabolism. Hydrolysis of glycosidic bond, that is also a part of metabolism. So all these reactions which are occurring inside our body make our metabolism. And here you can see these metabolic process, like food intake. When food is taken inside our body, then food breakdown, energy is created due to breakdown of food. Then our body, due to that energy help us to repair our body. Then activity and energy, that energy is also used for different activities. Next important thing about metabolism is presence of metabolites, and we have discussed about metabolites also. You know what are primary and secondary metabolites, right? So we discussed that all the organic biomolecules which are used for the metabolism are called metabolites, right? So we can say intermediate products of metabolic reactions. Okay, so or we can say the all the molecules which are used in metabolic reactions are called metabolites, right? Now flow of metabolites in metabolic pathway has a definite rate and direction, like automobile traffic. Like automobile traffics have a definite rate and pathway. Likewise, here metabolites also follow a definite pathway for all the reactions which are occurring inside our body. This metabolite flow is called dynamic state of body constituents. These metabolic pathways are of two types, or you can say the biochemical reactions are of two types: anabolic pathway or anabolic reactions, and catabolic pathway or catabolic reaction, you can say. Anabolic pathway are also called biosynthetic pathway. So let's see what is the difference between these two. Anabolic pathways, here the simple molecules form complex structures. Simpler molecules form complex structure. Means it is a constructive process. Okay, that's why it is also called biosynthetic. Synthetic means formation of something is taking place here. Okay, and biosynthetic, bio means because it's occurring in living entity, so it is a constructive process and it is biosynthetic pathway. Whereas in catabolic pathway, the complex molecules become simple structures and it is a destructive process. Okay, complex molecule break down to form simple structure, that's why it is a destructive process. So for the construction, you know, there is need of energy, so anabolic pathways consume energy, while when there will be destructive process, when there will be breakdown of complex molecule into simple structures, there will be release of energy. Okay, now these are some examples of anabolic pathway, like formation of cholesterol from acetic acid. Okay, this is a constructive process and it requires energy. Formation of proteins from amino acids, that also need energy, and you know, amino acids are smaller subunits and a complex molecule is formed, that is protein. Okay, photosynthesis is also an anabolic pathway. Then these are examples of catabolic pathway where complex molecules are broken down to form the simple structure. So here glucose break down to form lactic acid, and the process is called glycolysis. Okay, the process in which glucose is broken down to form lactic acid is called glycolysis, and this is a catabolic pathway and there is release of energy. It is a part of respiration. Okay, this formation of lactic acid from glucose is a part of respiration, and you know, energy is released in respiration. So other than this reaction, there are many other reactions also in respiration, and that is also an example of catabolic pathway. You can understand it from here, anabolism and catabolism. In anabolism, energy is required. Okay, you can see these simple structures here, and these simple structures combinedly make a complex structure, as you can see here. These are simple molecules separately, and then this complex structure is formed here with the use of energy, right? And here in catabolism or catabolic pathway, you can see this complex structure in starting, which is broken down to form the simple structures with the release of energy. Energy released through catabolism is stored in the form of chemical bonds, because when catabolic reactions occur inside our cells, that a large amount of energy is released, and that much amount of energy cannot be utilized by cell at once. Okay, that's why we need to store that. And how that is stored? That is stored in the form of chemical bonds. And when needed, means when cell will need any energy for any biosynthetic pathway or for any other process, then these chemical bonds will break and energy will be released. Okay, and this bond energy, means this chemical bond energy, is utilized for biosynthetic, osmotic and mechanical works which are occurring inside the cell, right? Now these chemical bonds, so the most important chemical bond which is utilized for the storage of energy is in the form of phosphate bonds. Okay, so here you can see the most important energy currency in living system, means where the energy is stored in living system, is the bond energy in adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate is ATP. Okay, so ATP molecule is the energy currency in our cells. Okay, so here you can see the structure of ATP molecule, as the name is suggesting, adenosine. Adenosine means adenine as nitrogen base plus sugar. Okay, adenine plus sugar will make adenosine. You have studied about it earlier also, that what is adenosine, right? So adenine plus sugar. So let's see, this is structure of adenine, a nitrogenous base right? And this is ribose sugar. So at the first position of ribose here, this adenine is attached. Okay, so this complete structure will be adenosine. The structure from here to here, this is adenosine. And here what is attached with adenosine? Triphosphate, means 3 phosphate groups. Okay, triphosphate. So you can see here with this adenosine, these 3 phosphate groups are attached. 1, 2, 3 phosphate groups are attached here. So this complete structure is called ATP molecule or adenosine triphosphate. Okay, and these phosphate groups you can see here, these are high energy bonds. Okay, the energy is stored inside these chemical bonds. When these are broken, then energy is released for the biosynthetic processes inside the cell, right? Now you can see here when the glycolysis occur, like I told you that glycolysis is a catabolic pathway and energy is released during that. Okay, so you can see here during glycolysis ATP is formed. Okay, this is another process during the respiration. You will study about it also in 11th class in some chapters. So here here also you can see these 28 ATP, 2 ATP. These molecules of ATP are formed here, means energy is released here, which is stored in the form of ATP. Right? You need to don't need to make this diagram or learn this diagram at this point, because it is just for understanding that how energy is released during the catabolism and how it is stored in the form of ATP molecule. Okay, you just make the diagram of this ATP molecule, don't make this. After this, our next topic is the living state. In living organisms, the metabolites are present in different concentration. Metabolites, like you can say, all the organic biomolecules, proteins, carbohydrates, these are present in different concentration. A fixed concentration of every metabolite is present in our cells, right? For example, blood concentration of glucose in a normal person is 4.2 to 6.1 millimolar per liter, right? This concentration of glucose is present in our blood, while concentration of hormones is in nanograms per milliliter. So you can see the difference in these concentration. That's why with this example we can say that a fixed concentration of every biomolecule or every metabolite is present inside our blood or inside our cells. One more important point about the living state is that it is in non-equilibrium state. So system at equilibrium state cannot perform work, right? If any system is at equilibrium state, so you might have studied in physics also, according to physics, that if any system is at equilibrium, it cannot perform work, right? But you know, living organisms need to work continuously, right? That's why living system is not at equilibrium. So as living organisms work continuously, they cannot reach equilibrium, right? That's why we can say the living state is a non-equilibrium steady state to be able to perform work. Because it is non-equilibrium, only that's why it is able to perform work. So it is non-equilibrium steady state. Living process is a constant effort to prevent falling into equilibrium. Because if any living system will fall in equilibrium, it will not be able to do any work, okay, and all the metabolic reactions will be stopped. That's why we can say the living process means all the living metabolic reactions which are occurring inside a living entity, that is a part of living process, and that is a constant effort to prevent falling into equilibrium. Okay, so a non-equilibrium state is maintained by these metabolic reactions, right? So this is achieved by energy input obtained from metabolism, right? This non-equilibrium state is achieved by energy input, because if there will be no energy input, then equilibrium state will be achieved, right? So this non-equilibrium state is achieved by energy input. So no living state without metabolism. Now this is your homework for today, NCERT question number 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now let's discuss the answer of question number 8 of NCERT, which was given as homework in previous lecture. So question is, can you describe what happened when milk is converted into curd or yogurt from your understanding of proteins? So answer is, during fermentation, milk protein such as casein is denatured. So milk has protein named casein, which is denatured during fermentation, which transforms globular proteins into fibrous proteins. Okay, so these are two different types of protein, globular protein and fibrous proteins. Fiber like structures are formed here in fibrous proteins. So what happened, the casein protein, which is in globular form, which is globular protein, so this is this globular protein present in milk is converted into fibrous protein, and this change is responsible for the production of curd or yogurt from milk. Okay, when the globular form of protein is present, milk is in liquid form, you can say. And when fermentation means when the lactobacillus bacteria work, then what happened, that globular protein changes into fibrous protein, making that liquid milk into a solid curd. Okay, means that will solidify. So curd is formed due to formation of fibrous proteins.